Final game we're previewing, Dalton, is the Sunday night game that we got between number 13 LSU and number 23 USC. Sunday night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC. Again, this storyline writes itself, man. You're replacing the last two Heisman Trophy winners and the first two picks of the 2024 NFL Draft. Caleb Williams is gone. Jaden Daniels is gone. Jaden Daniels is gone as well. Now you got Miller Moss and you got Garrett Nussmeier, the new quarterbacks for these teams. So big shoes to fill for both of them. But I still think these offenses are going to be really good, man. So I'm excited to see these two replace two legendary quarterbacks in Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels.
Absolutely. I mean, and you have two teams that went through incredibly similar seasons last year when you talk about you had the great quarterbacks and you had the great offenses, but the defenses let us down in both cases, right? Neither team won as many games as they should have. You could argue they both had playoff caliber and national championship caliber offenses, right? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You know, we talked about LSU. 3 losses, they gave up 142 points, right? And USC, you talked about their EPA per play. It seemed like every week last year, just towards the bottom of the barrel. I mean, these are teams it's hard to win shootouts 50-40 every single week. And honestly, you've got the same thing coming into this year. Now you're not going to score that many points on either side. We don't think, at least, for USC or LSU. But you still have to fix the problems on defense, and they're going about it in different ways. LSU bringing back a lot of guys other than at defensive tackle. USC bringing in a lot of new faces. So this is a weird one. This is absolutely a weird one when you talk about two guys each who only made one start last year at quarterback, two defenses that really struggled, kind of a lot of things in flux and a lot of draft picks. And, this one could get wild. This could just be a wild Sunday night game, just maybe it is one of those games that we get it. Maybe it's our first game we get in the 50s this year. Who knows how high scoring it could be if these two defenses are still struggling. But they're two teams that went through very similar seasons last year, and I think going into this year kind of have a very similar feel to them as well.
Absolutely. So USC at least try to make a lot of acquisitions, new coordinator, new players on the defensive side of the ball. Will it be enough to stop this new look LSU offense, though?
We're going to find out the hard way, right? But they did bring in a lot of talented guys, right? You've got new safety Akili Arnold from Oregon State. Kamari Ramsey and John Humphrey come over with DeAnton Lynn, their new defensive coordinator from UCLA. Greedy Vance was a solid corner and an excellent Florida State secondary. Added some pieces up front too. Nate Clifton, Gavin Meyer. They're just trying to collect talent because they did lose some talent too. You talk about Damani Jackson left. Kalen Bullock got drafted. Solomon Byrd, their best pass rusher, got drafted. The talented guys they did have, they got drafted, and they had to go out, and DeAnton Lynn had to go and pick some talented guys to fill in for them. So that's really what I'm looking for is USC has this new wave of guys that you go, okay, and we saw DeAnton Lynn, first of all, at UCLA. What a huge turnaround he had.
Unbelievable.
They were outside the top 100 in defense a couple of years ago, and he turned them into an elite unit really quick. But they don't have as much talent, especially up front, as that UCLA team with Latu and the Murphy brothers. But I want to see how quickly he can turn this around. And as far as the LSU side of it, Nussmeier's experienced. He's been there for 3 years already. He looked really good in his one start against Wisconsin last year. And I like when you watch him year over year, his process in the pocket is a lot better than it used to be. Gets rid of the football quicker. There's quicker decisions. He can work to his second read. The one thing with Nussmeier is he's just not going to bring you, obviously, the feet. The style of quarterback from Jaden Daniels is the exact opposite. He can throw a little bit, especially when rolling to his right, but 95% of the time he's going to win from the pocket. I think the one distinct advantage LSU does have is pass protection. You talk about especially at tackle with Will Campbell and Emory Jones. USC is going to have to find a pass rush in this game because if Nussmeier is sitting back there clean and he's allowed to just make throws from the pocket with just unabated, it's going to be a long night. They're going to be asking USC to put up 45, 50 points again because LSU still has a lot of offensive talent, even though they lost 3 first-round picks.
They absolutely do, man. And I think USC still has a lot of offensive talent as well, and that's really the other side of the ball is, can Miller Moss take advantage of a vulnerable LSU defense, and specifically the secondary, man? Because last year, they were really bad in terms of coverage, man. 92nd in coverage grade last year. And defense and pass rush-wise, they lost Mason Smith and Mekhi Wingo, their top 2 defensive tackles from last year as well, and Torrin Jefferson as well, right? So LSU did make some moves to help, namely hiring a new defensive coordinator in Blake Baker coming in from Missouri, but I'm not as high on this defense as I am on, say, a USC one, just because USC brings in a lot more talent from the portal. LSU didn't really do too much of that, really. And yeah, I know Miller Moss is really his first game as a starter in the season, at least. He started the bowl game, obviously, last year, but in a great game in that bowl game. It's a really good defense at Louisville, too. A lot better than this LSU one right now. And I think there's an opportunity here for Miller Moss and Lincoln Riley to flex their muscles, man. Lincoln Riley has had a top 10 offense in terms of EPA per play in the Power 5 ever since he became the Oklahoma offensive coordinator in 2015, man. We're talking about like 9 seasons in a row of a top 10 offense, no matter who is playing quarterback for him. So I understand Caleb Williams has gone the number 1 overall pick, but man, every single year he finds a new one, right? Baker Mayfield, then you got Kyler Murray, then you go to Jalen Hurts, then you go to Spencer Rattler, then you go to Caleb Williams. Now you got Miller Moss. I'm not going to say he's going to be an NFL quarterback like all of those other guys. Maybe he will be. But I will say Miller Moss is a guy that is going to play on time. Caleb Williams, it didn't really, he freelanced, right? That's why he went number 1 overall in the draft. And what made him so special, what I think we'll see from this USC offense this year that we didn't see last year, is that this will be Lincoln Riley. This will be the Lincoln Riley show. This won't be the Caleb Williams show. This will be the Lincoln Riley show. This will be the exact offense he draws up. And I think Miller Moss, that's what he's going to do, is just run the play the way it was designed.
What I love watching about Miller Moss is his process, his clear knowledge of how this system works. And it's going to look different. It's in structure. He doesn't do a ton out of structure. He can move a little bit. But that's not his wheelhouse, right? He wants to run this system and run the plays as they're designed. Get to his first read, get to his second read, maybe find a check down, work that whole process from the pocket, and then figure it out from there. But he doesn't want to do it as often as Caleb did. He doesn't have the superpowers that Caleb did, right? But I honestly think that's why Moss is starting, though, because Lincoln Riley, and I know he's got what, Jaden Maiava, who came in there from UNLV, but Moss knows the system, and he seems, especially in that Louisville start, to know it very well, and he's fearless, man. I'm going to tell you right now, he had Ashton Gelati breathing down his neck in that game, and he was making throws through that. He was challenging Quincy Riley in single coverage. He didn't care.
He had like 6 touchdown passes in that game, or 5 at least, or something like that.
I think it was 6, yeah.
6 and 0 picks, I think, right? Yeah.
1 pick.
One pick.
He threw 1 pick to Riley on the goal line.
Right, I remember that, yeah.
And even then, of like the 8 times or however many it was that he challenged a guy like Quincy Riley, he just kept firing. Yep. He just kept firing, and he comes back. And look, he doesn't have the biggest arm either. He doesn't have an arm like Caleb where he can throw it 65 yards off platform. Like most of Miller Moss's best throws are going to be on time. They're going to be between like 25 and 35 yards. You're not going to see tools and crazy stuff. What you're going to just see is efficiency and playing in structure. And I think you're going to see it from both these quarterbacks. These two teams are so identical. It's such a fascinating game because even the guys that they're losing at quarterback to the guys that they're going to, they're like the exact same. They really are, and we're just going to find out in this game, like, okay, who's just better on this night because the situations are so similar.
Dude, honestly, and I tweeted this out, and you mentioned it too, is like usually there's a quarterback every year in the draft that comes out of nowhere. Zach Wilson, Kenny Pickett, Jaden Daniels last year. Who will be this year?
It could be either of these
guys or both of them.
Either of them, because you can tell that Nussmeier is a coach's son, right? Doug Nussmeier. You can tell he's a coach's son. You can tell Moss has come up under Lincoln Riley the last 3 years and just learned how that system works and learned how coverages work and all that. You can tell just what they've been taught and the pedigree in their play, even though they've only played a small sample. And I think that's why, honestly, we both have a lot of confidence in both of them to succeed, is because they just get it. Like, I don't know how else to put it. Nussmeier's got a better arm, I would say, than Moss does, but they both just understand the game.
And I understand Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. gone, and USC lost Taj Washington and some other guys too.
Oh, there's still weapons.
But, dude, Zachariah Branch, C.J. Daniels, there's still Kyron Lacey, Deuce Robinson in USC.
I was going to get to Deuce Robinson. Woo! Yeah, they're for USC, they're younger weapons for sure. And I think bringing in Woody Marks from Mississippi State helps a lot.
Yeah.
I think there is an element, for as much as we're going to talk about quarterbacks, and these two guys are going to get talked about all night, who can run the ball. Right, yep. USC's run defense last year was awful, to say the least. And LSU, you've got two teams also where it's like we don't have quarterback run game anymore. So now we have to just hand it off and just win up front. Now you have to like LSU's offensive line's chances that you have Campbell and Jones. You should be able to run the ball. But who is going to run the ball in this game? How much balance is it? There's so many like fascinating schematic things that could come out of this game. That I mean, it's wild, and there are two teams that It's a real tone-setting game. It's like
Yeah.
they're just so similar that you could argue by the end of the week it might be the most fascinating game of the whole week.
Also, LSU new offensive coordinator as well, right? Because Dan Brock is gone too, so I'm excited to see what Joe Sloan does as the new offensive coordinator. I think it's an internal promotion for them, but still, it's gonna be interesting to see what he could do in this game against Lincoln Riley, right? That's as tough as it gets for when you're going head to head with Lincoln Riley. That's tough as your first game as an OC, man. But Dalton, ultimately, LSU's favored in this game, man. But who are you going with to win this Sunday night game?
I think in a matchup of very similar teams, I like what USC did in the portal, adding veterans to their defense. And LSU is pretty much just going in with the same group of guys they had last year and hoping it just gets better internally and improves internally, and they just play better than they did last year. I'm gonna take D'Anton Lynn and that crew to make enough stops. It's probably gonna be a high-scoring game. It could be higher scoring than I have it. I have it USC 35 and LSU 27.
Okay.
I think we could see a lot more points than that. If this game got in the 40s both ways, I wouldn't be that shocked at all. But I think USC made the right hire for their defensive coordinator. I think Miller Moss is going to keep them out of trouble. I think both quarterbacks are going to play well. I really do. I just think I worry about that LSU secondary that you mentioned. I really do, because even with young weapons and Miller Moss in there, LSU made a lot of mistakes in the secondary last year. A similar problem that Florida had, right? But I think I like Lincoln Riley against a defense like that. And I know LSU's favorite, and I know they're the SEC team and this and that and the other thing. But Lincoln Riley, no matter who his quarterback is, he's going to put up points.
Yeah. And listen, Blake Baker coming in, he did a good job with Missouri secondary last year. But you look at the talent they brought in, it's kind of the same as last year, man. So it's like, did they really improve, honestly? So,
and another thing we talk about a lot is how many times is Harold Perkins going to rush the passer?
Yeah.
It's
huge.
Are we getting that? And the weird part is he led them in coverage grade last year by like a wide margin, which wasn't supposed to happen.
Like 10 points.
More
right?
power to him adjusting to the position. But at what point do we go, okay, we just have to send him?
Yeah.
It's our one shot. So are we going to get the same story as last year with that too?
Yeah, exactly. I wrote an article about that after that Florida State LSU game. I was like, dude, rush it. Let him rush the passer at least a little bit. And he didn't. I think he read like 8 pass rushing snaps in the game. So we'll see in this game. But I got USC winning as well, man. 34-31. I think it'll be a little bit of a shootout. I just trust Lincoln Riley and Miller Moss against this LSU defense more than Nussmeier against an improved USC defense. I can tell you I'm pretty confident they're going to be improved. I don't know if I'm as confident as LSU's defense being improved. So that's why I got USC winning this game and pulling off a slight upset, Dawn.